The first thing I heard when I stepped into the ballroom was my future daughter-in-law laughing. Did they really seat the janitor with the donors? She did not say it to my face. She said it to two women beside her, softly enough to pretend it was private and loudly enough for all three of them to enjoy it. I looked down at my navy work shirt. My name, Walter, was stitched above the pocket. There was a faint watermark on one sleeve from the pipe I had repaired that afternoon, but my trousers were clean, my shoes were polished, and I had changed into the best jacket I kept in my locker. I had been invited to the gala by my son. Still, standing beneath those crystal chandeliers with wealthy families turning toward me, I felt as though I had entered through the wrong door. I started back toward the hallway. Before I reached it, my son Marcus stepped in front of me and took hold of my wrist. "Dad," he said quietly, "please don't leave." I looked past him toward Elise, the woman he was supposed to marry in 4 months. She made herself clear. "I know." Those two words hurt more than the insult. "You hurt her?" "Yes." "And you want me to stay?" Marcus leaned closer. "They still have one document left to sign. After that, you'll understand everything." There was something in his face I had never seen before, not embarrassment, not fear, but the hard concentration he used when he was trying a case. "Trust me until the speeches are over," he said. Then he released my wrist and returned to the head table beside the woman who had just called his father a janitor as if it were a disease. "My name is Walter Hale. I was 66 years old that night, and for nearly 3 decades I had served as facilities supervisor at Barron Academy, a private school just outside Charleston, South Carolina. The students called me Mr. Walter. The faculty called me when the heating failed, when a classroom flooded, when the old science wing smelled like gas, or when a nervous child locked himself in the bathroom and was too frightened to come out. The Barron family called me maintenance. When they wanted to remind me of my position, they called me the custodian. I had never been ashamed of either word. My father repaired elevators in Pittsburgh. He used to tell me that people rarely notice the men who keep a building running. They only notice when those men are gone. I spent 22 years in the Navy's construction battalions before Denise and I moved back to South Carolina. We had a young son then, bills stacked on the kitchen counter, and one used car that complained every morning before it started. Barron Academy hired me as a boiler technician. I learned every inch of that campus. The electrical tunnels beneath the oldest building, the iron valves behind the gymnasium walls, the roof drains that clogged every October, and the temperamental clock above Founders Hall that gained 11 minutes whenever the air turned humid. I worked my way up, though nobody ever used the word promotion around the Barrons. They simply handed me more keys and more responsibility. Denise worked nights as a respiratory therapist. Between the two of us, we made sure Marcus never went without books, braces, or a quiet place to study. He was the kind of child who read the fine print on cereal boxes. At 10, he argued with a referee about the written rules of Little League. At 14, he helped a neighbor dispute an unfair towing charge by finding the city ordinance at the library. When he told us he wanted to become a lawyer, Denise laughed and said the profession had been warned. Marcus attended the University of South Carolina on scholarship, then went to law school in Washington, D.C. I took extra weekend shifts during those years. Denise sold the small gold bracelet her mother had left her to cover his first apartment deposit. We never told him that part until much later. Parents make those choices quietly. You do not hand your child an invoice for your love. Marcus came back to Charleston after law school and joined a firm that specialized in government contracts and public funding. He was good at finding what other people hoped would remain buried under paperwork. He was also a good son. He called his mother every morning while she was going through treatment for breast cancer. He drove me to my first colonoscopy and sat in the waiting room with 3 newspapers because he said one was not enough to survive hospital coffee. He never acted as if our work uniforms had been embarrassing stepping stones to his expensive suits. Then he met Elise Barron. Her family had founded Barron Academy 3 generations earlier. They did not technically own the school, but their name was carved above the entrance, printed on the foundation letterhead, and attached to enough donations that few board members challenged them. Elise was 32, polished, charming, and excellent at making attention feel like affection. She served as director of the Barron Educational Foundation. Her father, Grant, chaired the Academy's board. Her mother, Lydia, ran the annual giving campaign and appeared in local magazines whenever a hospital wing needed a photograph beside an oversized check. The first time Marcus brought Elise to our house, She arrived carrying flowers for Denise and a bottle of wine for me. She asked thoughtful questions. She admired the porch Marcus and I had rebuilt. She even laughed when Denise told her that Marcus had once tried to negotiate a later bedtime with a typed contract. But I noticed what happened when Elise thought no one was watching. She glanced at the oil stain beneath my fingernail. She looked at the patched leather on my chair. When Marcus mentioned that I worked at Barron Academy, she tilted her head and said, "How wonderfully full circle." It sounded kind. It did not feel kind. Denise understood immediately. After they left, she stood at the sink rinsing 2 wine glasses and said, "That woman keeps score. You got all that from one dinner?" She looked at our house 3 times before she looked at you. I told Denise we were being protective parents. Marcus was happy. Elise was attentive to him. Her family welcomed him into rooms filled with judges, developers, and elected officials. I wanted to believe love had softened whatever sharpness I saw in her. For more than a year, I kept my concerns to myself. Then Barron Academy received an $8.4 million state restoration grant. The money was supposed to repair Founders Hall, replace outdated fire systems, restore the library roof, and reinforce the original brickwork around the auditorium. The project would also protect the pensions of longtime employees by reducing the school's emergency maintenance debt. Grant Barron treated the award like a personal victory. He scheduled press conferences. Lydia organized donor receptions conferences. Elise produced glossy videos about protecting history for future generations. I cared less about the photographs than the work. Founders Hall needed real repairs. I had been placing buckets beneath the same library leaks for 6 winters. A section of decorative masonry had fallen near the east entrance, missing a student by less than 3 feet. But when construction began, things did not add up. Invoices arrived for equipment I had never seen. A contractor billed the school for replacing 92 windows. Only 46 had been removed. A company called Low Country Heritage Systems charged nearly $400,000 for rewiring the auditorium. Their crew spent 9 days on campus and left half the original wiring untouched. I reported the discrepancies to the project manager, who told me accounting was not my responsibility. I reported them to Grant. He smiled as though I were a child interrupting dinner. "Walter, you keep the pipes flowing. Let the professionals handle the funding. I am the professional responsible for confirming the work. Your name is on the facilities reports. That is all the confirmation we require." That answer stayed with me. A week later, I tried to access the digital inspection system and discovered that several approvals had been entered under my employee credentials. I had not entered them. One approval had been submitted at 2:17 in the morning while I was sitting beside Denise in the hospital after a complication from her treatment. I changed my password and contacted the Academy's information technology director. The next morning, he told me the record must have been a system error. By lunch, my old password worked again. I began printing everything. I did not know then that Marcus had already noticed the same trail from another direction. Grant had asked his law firm to review the final grant certification. Marcus was assigned because the Barons considered him family and assumed he would be cooperative. The certification stated that all construction had been completed, inspected, and approved. Once signed, it would release the final $2.1 million and close the state's active oversight period. My electronic signature appeared on 23 supporting documents. Marcus knew something was wrong, because one of them claimed I had personally inspected roof work on the morning Denise underwent surgery. He had been sitting beside me in the hospital cafeteria that day. Instead of confronting Elise, he quietly contacted an attorney at his firm who specialized in whistleblower cases. That attorney connected him with the South Carolina Office of Inspector General. For 10 weeks, my son lived 2 lives. In one, he attended wedding tastings, smiled through dinners with the Barons, and discussed floral arrangements with Elise. In the other, he copied financial records, preserved emails, and participated in recorded meetings under the direction of investigators. I knew none of it. What I did know was that Marcus had become distant. He missed 2 Sunday dinners. When I asked about the false approvals, he told me not to confront Grant until he had reviewed the documents. Then 3 weeks passed without an answer. I began to wonder whether he was protecting Elise. That thought embarrassed me, because I trusted my son. But fear is patient. Give it enough silence, and it will build a whole courthouse inside your mind. Denise refused to join me in that courthouse. "Marcus is doing something," she said. "What?" "I don't know. That is not reassuring. He learned secrecy from you. I do not keep secrets. She gave me a look only a wife of 41 years can give. You hid 3 months of overtime from him so he wouldn't know we were paying his tuition. That was different. Of course it was. Your secrets were noble. She reached across our kitchen table and placed her hand over mine. Do not decide he has betrayed you simply because he has not explained himself yet. I wanted to believe her. Then came the Restoration Legacy Gala. The event was held at the Calhoun Grand Hotel, with 200 guests, local reporters, Academy trustees, donors, contractors, and state representatives. Grant planned to sign the final grant certification on stage during the closing presentation. Marcus had insisted that Denise and I attend. Denise had been feeling weak after treatment and decided to stay home. I almost stayed with her, but she pressed my clean jacket into my hands. You have spent 28 years keeping that school standing, she said. Go sit in the room where they congratulate themselves for it. At 4 that afternoon, a pipe burst beneath the Academy's dining hall. I spent nearly 3 hours shutting down the line, helping the emergency crew, and preventing water from reaching the electrical panels. There was no time to drive home and change. I washed up in the maintenance office, put on my jacket over my uniform shirt, and drove directly to the hotel. That was how I arrived beneath the chandeliers with Walter stitched above my pocket. And that was when Elise laughed. Did they really seat the janitor with the donors? After Marcus asked me to stay, I took my assigned seat near the edge of the ballroom. It was not at the donor table. It was beside 2 retired teachers, a bus driver named Earl and Mrs. Kim, who had managed the Academy cafeteria since Marcus was a student. I could see the head table from where I sat. Marcus was beside Elise. Grant and Lydia sat on her other side, accepting handshakes and compliments. My son did not look at me for the first 20 minutes. Every instinct I had told me to leave. Then a hotel employee placed an envelope beside my plate. Inside was a note in Marcus's handwriting. Service corridor behind the kitchen. 10 minutes. I excused myself and walked past the kitchen doors. Marcus was waiting beside a row of silver catering carts. With him stood a woman in a dark green suit whom I recognized from the guest list as Dr. Naomi Bell, Deputy Inspector General for State Grants. Marcus closed the service door behind me. Dad, I owe you an explanation. You owe your mother one too. I know. Dr. Bell stepped forward. Mr. Hale, your son has been assisting our investigation into the Barron Foundation and the Academy Restoration Project. I looked at Marcus. How long? Since February. That is 4 months. Yes. You knew someone was using my credentials? Yes. And you let me continue working under those people without telling me? His face tightened. The investigators believed Grant would destroy records if he suspected we knew. They also believed he intended to make you responsible once the state reviewed the missing funds. Dr. Bell opened a folder. Inside were copies of invoices carrying my name, altered security logs, and an internal memorandum I had never seen. The memorandum described me as the sole operational certifier for all completed restoration work. At the bottom was a proposed disciplinary plan. After the final grant payment cleared, I was to be placed on administrative leave for irregular approvals. They planned to accuse me of accepting bribes from fake contractors. My knees weakened. Marcus pulled out a chair from the wall. I did not sit. Show me all of it. He played a recording from his phone. Grant's voice came first. Once the certification is filed, the facility's records become Walter's problem. Then Elise spoke. Will anyone believe he managed that much money? Lydia laughed. They do not have to believe he was smart. They only have to believe he was greedy. There are moments when pain does not arrive as pain. It arrives as clarity. I remembered every Christmas Eve I had spent checking boilers while the Barons hosted parties upstairs. I remembered carrying Elise out of the school infirmary when she was 9 and had broken her ankle during a dance recital. I remembered Grant thanking me after a hurricane for sleeping in the gymnasium 3 nights to protect the campus generators. They knew exactly who I was. That had not stopped them from choosing me. Why? I asked Marcus. Why involve you? Grant wanted my firm's signature on the legal review. He thought our marriage would keep me loyal to the family. And Elise? Marcus looked down. She knew from the beginning. That answer cost him something. I could see it. A father knows when his child has been wounded, even when that child is 35 years old and wearing a tailored suit. I wanted to put my arms around him, Instead, anger rose first. You should have told me. I wanted to. You allowed me to think you were protecting her. I know. You let me sit at that table while she insulted me. His voice dropped. The certification has to be signed tonight. All three of them are listed as responsible officers. Dr. Bell's team needs them to affirm the false figures after Grant receives one final warning about the discrepancies. If they sign anyway, it proves knowledge, not merely bad accounting. Dr. Bell nodded. Agents are already in the hotel. We have court-authorized warrants prepared for the Foundation office and the Baron's financial records. We are not asking you to confront anyone or participate in the operation. Marcus looked at me. I asked you to stay because when this happens, they are going to say you were confused, careless, or involved. I need the board and the employees to see you standing in that room when the truth comes out. You used me as part of the presentation? No, I need you as my father. Those words broke through my anger. Marcus stepped closer. I've spent 4 months pretending I might still marry a woman who planned to send you to prison. I sat through conversations where they called you expendable. I did it because Dr. Bell needed proof, and because if I confronted them too early, they could blame the missing money on you and disappear behind lawyers. He swallowed. I am sorry I let you hurt, but I was never choosing them. I finally sat down. The kitchen noise came through the walls, plates stacking, carts rolling, cooks calling to one another. Ordinary work continued while my life changed shape. How much is missing? I asked. More than $5 million, Doctor, Bell said. Some went through false construction firms. Some was moved from employee retirement accounts to cover foundation debt. The final payment would allow them to replace part of what they took before the annual audit. I thought of Mrs. Kim, Earl, the retired teachers, and everyone who had spent years earning those pensions. This is not only about me. No, Marcus said. It never was. A bell sounded from the ballroom, announcing the final program. Dr. Bell collected the folder. You can leave now, Mr. Hale. No one would blame you. I stood. My wife would. For the first time that evening, Marcus almost smiled. We returned separately. I sat beside Mrs. Kim as the lights dimmed. Grant Barron walked onto the stage to applause. He stood beneath a projected photograph of Founders Hall glowing at sunset. Tonight, he began, we celebrate integrity, stewardship, and the sacred trust between an institution and its community. I heard Earl mutter, that is a lot of expensive words. Under other circumstances, I might have laughed. Grant thanked donors, state officials, contractors, and the Barron family. He did not mention the electricians, roofers, groundskeepers, cafeteria workers, teachers, or custodians who kept the school functioning while his foundation moved money through companies that existed only on paper. Lydia spoke next about transparency. Then Elise approached the microphone. She wore a silver gown and the expression of a woman certain every camera in the room admired her. She described the restoration as a promise to the working people who make education possible. Her eyes found me. For half a second, the confidence slipped. Then she smiled. Marcus sat at the head table with his hands folded. Grant invited him onto the stage. As many of you know, Marcus Hale will soon become part of our family. Tonight, in his professional capacity, he will witness the final certification of this historic project. Applause moved through the ballroom. Marcus rose. He did not look at Elise as he walked onto the stage. A hotel employee carried out a table with 3 folders. Dr. Bell remained seated near the center of the room. Grant signed first. Lydia signed beneath him. Elise took the pen last. Marcus leaned toward the microphone. Before you sign, I need to ask one question for the record. Grant frowned. This is ceremonial. The certification states that every listed project was completed and independently verified. Are you affirming that statement from your own knowledge? Grant's smile returned, thinner than before. Absolutely. Marcus looked at Lydia. And you? Yes. Then he faced Elise. She stared at him. Marcus, what are you doing? Giving you the opportunity to tell the truth. The room changed. Not dramatically at first. A few heads turned. Someone near the press table lifted a phone. Elise's fingers tightened around the pen. My family has nothing to hide. Then signed. She did. The moment the pen left the paper, Dr. Bell stood. Please do not submit that certification. Grant's face hardened. And you are? Dr. Naomi Bell, Office of the Inspector General. Two men and one woman rose from separate tables around the ballroom. Dr. Bell walked toward the stage. This foundation is under investigation for fraudulent billing, diversion of public grant funds, falsification of safety inspections, and misappropriation of employee retirement contributions. For several seconds, no one reacted. The words were too large to enter the room all at once. Then voices began around the tables. Grant stepped in front of the microphone. This is a political stunt. Whatever concerns your office has can be addressed privately. They were addressed privately, Dr. Bell said. Your office received written notice of discrepancies 3 weeks ago. You signed the certification tonight after receiving that notice. Grant looked at Marcus. You brought them here? Marcus opened one of the folders. No. Your invoices did. A screen behind the stage displayed a chart of payments from the restoration grant. Money moved from the Academy Foundation to 3 contractors. From those contractors, it moved into accounts controlled by companies connected to Grant's brother-in-law, Lydia's private consulting firm, and a property trust established for Elise. Grant reached for the microphone. Marcus stepped back, leaving him nothing to grab but silence. The next image showed an inspection form with my electronic signature. Marcus spoke clearly. This document claims my father approved completed roof reinforcement on March 8th at 9:15 in the morning. He changed the slide. A hospital record appeared with private information covered. At that exact time, he was sitting with my mother during cancer surgery. I was with him. Someone behind me whispered, "Dear God." Another slide showed security footage of a foundation administrator entering my office after midnight. Then came the access logs. Then the altered invoices. Then the memorandum naming me as the only person responsible for the approvals. Grant pointed toward me. Walter controlled those credentials. We cannot be responsible for how he used them. Marcus had expected that. He played the recording. Grant's voice filled the ballroom. Once the certification is filed, the facility's records become Walter's problem. Then Elise's question, will anyone believe he managed that much money? And Lydia's answer, they do not have to believe he was smart. They only have to believe he was greedy. No one moved. I felt every eye in the ballroom turn toward me. For most of my life, being noticed had meant something was broken. That night, people finally saw the man they had planned to break. Elise stared at Marcus as if he had become a stranger. You recorded us? The meeting was recorded under the direction of investigators. You lied to me. Marcus's expression did not change. You asked me to marry you while preparing to imprison my father. That was Dad's plan. Grant turned on her. Do not say another word. But panic had already begun pulling the family apart. Lydia rose from her chair. Grant told us the money would be replaced. He said the final payment would cover the pension transfer. The retired teachers at my table reacted before anyone else. One of them, Mrs. Avery, stood so quickly her chair fell backward. You took our pensions? Dr. Bell faced the room. Current records indicate that employee retirement contributions were temporarily diverted to cover foundation debts. Our office is working with the state treasurer to secure the accounts. Temporarily. That is a useful word for people who steal while expecting never to be caught. Mrs. Kim covered her mouth. Earl looked at me. You knew? Not until tonight. Grant tried to leave the stage. One of the investigators approached him. Mr. Barron, we have a warrant authorizing the seizure of foundation records and electronic devices. You are not under arrest at this moment, but you are directed not to destroy or remove evidence. Grant looked around the ballroom. The donors who once competed for his attention now avoided his eyes. The reporters moved closer. He had spent years constructing a reputation out of marble entrances, charity photographs, and carefully chosen words. It took less than 10 minutes for the truth to expose the hollow spaces inside it. Elise came down from the stage and walked toward Marcus. Her voice shook. You could have warned me. I did. When? Every time I asked whether the invoices were real. Every time I asked why my father's name appeared on inspections he never performed. Every time I gave you a chance to step away. She lowered her voice. We can still fix this. Marcus glanced toward me. No? We can finally stop fixing things for people who break them on purpose. That was the only line anyone repeated afterward. Not because he shouted it, because he did not. The investigators collected the signed certification, laptops, phones, and boxes of records from the foundation office that same night. The barons were not dragged away in handcuffs during the gala. Real investigations rarely move as quickly as anger wants them to. But their control ended in that ballroom. Grant resigned from the board the next morning. Lydia was removed from the foundation. Elise's engagement ring arrived at our house in a padded envelope 3 days later. Marcus placed it in his desk, without opening the note. For the first week, reporters waited outside the academy gates. I continued going to work. Some people treated me as if I had suddenly become important. Others apologized for not speaking when the barons dismissed me over the years. I appreciated the apologies, but I did not need a new title. I needed the truth entered into the record. The investigation lasted 7 months. It uncovered 5 shell companies, false contracts, diverted retirement funds, and nearly $6 million in grant money that had been spent or concealed. One company had billed the academy for restoring stonework that my own crew had repaired with materials already in storage. Another had charged more than $100,000 for fire system inspections performed by technicians who did not exist. 3 former employees came forward after seeing the gala coverage. A carpenter named Luis Mendoza had been blamed for missing materials 2 years earlier. His company collapsed after the foundation refused payment and accused him of theft. A bookkeeper had been pressured to alter pension records and quit when Lydia threatened to ruin her career. A former development officer testified that Grant had used donor money to cover mortgage payments on a vacation property. The barons had not chosen me because I was careless. They had chosen me because I was reliable. A reliable man's signature carries weight. They believed they could borrow my reputation, attach it to their fraud, and then discard me when the numbers were questioned. Their attorneys approached Marcus and me with a civil settlement before the criminal indictments were announced. The offer was $450,000, restoration of my retirement benefits, and a written statement saying the false approvals resulted from administrative confusion. In exchange, I would agree not to sue the foundation, avoid media interviews, and decline voluntary cooperation beyond what prosecutors legally required. The criminal case would continue, whether I accepted or not. That mattered. I did not possess the power to erase charges, and I would never pretend I did. But silence would have helped them argue that the damage had been exaggerated. Denise read the proposed agreement at our kitchen table. $450,000 was more money than we had ever seen in one place. It could have paid every medical bill, replaced our aging roof, and allowed me to retire without counting each month. Marcus did not tell me what to do. He had learned what secrecy could cost between a father and son. "What do you think?" I asked him. "I think it is your decision." "That sounds like a lawyer." "It is also the truth." Denise closed the folder. They did not only steal from us. That ended the discussion. I rejected the offer. The state froze several barren accounts. Recovered funds were returned to the grant program and employee pension system. Luis received payment for the work his company had performed. Grant and Lydia eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy, wire fraud, and theft involving public funds. Grant received 6.5 years in federal prison. Lydia received 3 years and was ordered to repay funds traced to her consulting company. Elise went to trial. Her attorneys argued that she had simply followed her parents and did not understand the financial details. Then prosecutors played her statement about me. They showed emails in which she instructed an administrator to place all approvals under my credentials. They showed that she had received more than $700,000 through the family trust. She was convicted and sentenced to 30 months, along with restitution and a permanent prohibition from managing charitable funds. When the judge asked whether I wanted to speak at sentencing, I stood and looked at all 3 of them. I had imagined that moment many times. In some versions, I humiliated them as completely as they had intended to humiliate me. But when the day arrived, I did not feel victorious. I felt tired. "I do not want revenge," I told the court. "I want the people who clean buildings, repair roofs, prepare meals, drive buses, teach children, and keep records to know that their names are not available for powerful people to misuse. We may work behind the scenes, but our lives are not disposable." That was all I said. Barron Academy survived. For the first time in its history, no member of the Barron family controlled the board. The school hired an independent superintendent and elected employee representatives to the finance committee. They offered me the title of Director of Campus Operations. I accepted on one condition. Mrs. Kim, Earl, and 2 faculty members had to serve on the Oversight Council. A year later, the Academy established a scholarship for the children of custodians, maintenance workers, cafeteria employees, and bus drivers. The board wanted to name it after me. I declined. We named it the Working Hands Scholarship. Marcus returned to ordinary legal work after the case ended. For a while, he avoided dating. He said he had mistaken being welcomed into impressive rooms for being respected by the people inside them. Then he met a woman named Camille Torres at a community college career fair. She taught electrical technology and argued with him for 20 minutes about whether lawyers understood the phrase preventive maintenance. The first time she came to our house, she noticed the old clock mechanism on my workbench. She did not ask how much it was worth. She asked why the escapement wheel was worn unevenly. Denise waited until Camille left before looking at me. That one does not keep score. 2 summers later, Marcus and Camille were married in the academy courtyard. There were no chandeliers and no cameras from society magazines. Mrs. Kim supervised the food. Earl drove the shuttle bus. Students from Camille's electrical program hung lights between the oak trees. Denise danced until her doctor would have objected. I wore a new suit. My work shirt was folded in the truck, just in case something broke. The morning after the wedding, Marcus met me at Founders Hall. Together, we climbed the narrow stairs behind the clock tower. The old mechanism had stopped during a thunderstorm. We spent 3 hours cleaning the gears, replacing a pin, and resetting the hands. When the clock finally began moving, Marcus sat beside me on the wooden platform. "I am sorry I did not tell you sooner," he said. "I know. Do you forgive me?" "I did before the gala ended." "Why didn't you say so?" "I wanted you to worry for a few months." He laughed, and the sound echoed through the tower. Then I told him the truth. "I was proud of you long before you exposed them. I was proud because you understood that protecting someone does not always look like standing in front of them. Sometimes it means working where they cannot see you until the danger is over." My friends, I spent most of my life entering rooms through service doors. I fixed what other people did not want to notice. I learned that wealthy people and poor people clog drains the same way, that expensive buildings still leak, and that a polished table can hide rotten wood beneath it. I also learned something about humiliation. When someone looks down on honest work, the shame does not belong to the worker. It belongs to the person who has forgotten how much of their comfortable life depends on hands they refuse to respect. Elise called me a janitor because she believed the word would make me smaller. She was wrong about the word, she was wrong about me, and she was wrong about my son. Marcus did not save me because I was helpless. He stood beside me because that is what family does when love has grown into character. I still work at Barron Academy, though the brass nameplate outside my office now says Director of Campus Operations. Most days I forget it is there. The students still call me Mr. Walter. That title has always been enough. Denise is in remission. She grows tomatoes in buckets along our back fence and tells every visitor that Marcus inherited his stubbornness from me. Camille corrects her and says it came equally from both sides. Every spring, the Working Hands Scholarship sends another student to college or trade school, and every hour, the clock above Founders Hall rings across the campus. Most people who hear it will never know who keeps it running. That no longer bothers me. The people who matter know. So let me ask you something, my friends. Had you been standing in that ballroom, would you have allowed the investigators to expose everything in front of the donors, employees, and reporters? Or would you have accepted the settlement, protected your family's peace, and walked away? There is no easy answer when real money, public shame, and the people you love are all sitting at the same table. But I know the choice I made. I chose to let the truth enter through the front door. Honest work never makes a person small, and love is proven most clearly when family chooses courage over comfort. Walter and Marcus remind us to speak up before silence protects the wrong people, to trust those who have earned our faith, and to honor the hands that quietly hold our lives together. A little respect, given freely, can become someone's shelter and our own. A small note for you: this story was created and fictionalized by AI for your entertainment while sharing a positive life lesson.